So we'll continue to read from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1, text 32 to 35, Bhagavad Gita as it is. Kim no rajena govinda, kim bhogir jivitena va, yesham arte kankshitam no rajyam bhoga sukhani cha, ta ime avastita yuddhe. I'm sorry. Pranam styaktva dhanani cha acharya pitra putra stathaiva cha pitamaha. Sorry, excuse me. Matula swashura pautraha shyala sambandhinastatha etanna hantum ichhami nato api madhusudana api trailokya rajasya heto kimno mahikrite nihatya ratrashtrana ka pritihi saya janardana. O Govinda, of what avail to us are a kingdom, happiness, or life, or even life itself, when all those for whom we may desire them are now arrayed on this battlefield? O Madhusudana, when teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties and are standing before me, why should I wish to kill them, even though they might otherwise kill me? O maintainer of all living entities, I am not prepared to fight with them, even in exchange for the three worlds, let alone this earth. What pleasure will we derive from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? So after Arjuna saw the Kauravas and the Pandavas, how they were ready for battle, he got his, because he's a pure devotee, he has a soft heart. So he's expressing his concern that he does not want to fight. Arjuna has addressed Lord Krishna as Govinda because Krishna is the object of all pleasures for cows and the senses. So Krishna is actually the object of our love. We think, no, our object of love is me, myself, this body. And that's where the material life is. Material life becomes because we think I'm the object of my body is the object of my love. But actually it's Krishna. That's why he's called Govinda. It's only Krishna that who can make the senses feel so blissful, so pleasurable. By using this significant word, Arjuna indicates that Krishna should understand what will satisfy Arjuna's senses. But Govinda is not meant for satisfying our senses. If we try to satisfy the senses of Govinda, however, then automatically our own senses are satisfied. So Arjuna is calling here Govinda to Krishna. He's saying, Krishna, you should satisfy me. That's what all of us are. You know, Krishna, you should satisfy me. You should make this situation in this way, and in this way I will be happy. This is a perfect situation. I wish it was like this. I wish it was like that. You know, we keep building these things and we think everything should be for our satisfaction, but our actual satisfaction. And we can see, we make so many plans. Some of them come true, some don't come true. Even if the ones that come true, we don't feel completely satisfied. We don't feel completely blissful. If we really want to feel completely blissful and completely satisfied, we should try to please the senses of Krishna. We should try to please the senses of Govinda. Then automatically we will feel blissful. Why? Just like when we are watering the plant, so we water the root. We do not water each and every leaf, each and every branch. If we do that, the plant will die. But if we water the root, automatically the leaves and branches become full. So in our conditioned life, we are saying, why shall I please Krishna? I will please myself. That is conditional life. That's why we have become full of anxiety and fear, not nice and green and connected with Krishna, not happy, like the dried up branches of a tree. But if we want to change the position, we just have to begin to satisfy Krishna's senses. Materially, everyone wants to satisfy his senses, and he wants God to be the order supplier for such satisfaction. The Lord will satisfy the senses of the living entities as much as they deserve, but not to the extent that they may covet. So we don't see whether we deserve or no. We just keep on ordering God, please make this situation like this. I want this situation to be like that. I want this and I want that. But when one takes the opposite way, namely, when one tries to satisfy the senses of Govinda without desiring to satisfy one's own senses, then by the grace of Govinda, all desires of the living entity are satisfied. So how can we satisfy the senses of Govinda? How can we do that? We can do that by hearing and chanting. It begins by hearing and chanting. Chant the holy name, Hare Krishna mantra. Just by when we are chanting, Krishna feels happy. Because he feels happy, we feel the bliss. Now, why does he feel happy when we are chanting his name? Is he like us that we want everyone to glorify us? Oh, you're so good. Oh, you're so nice. Oh, you're so this and you're so that. He's not like that. He doesn't need that from us. He's Atmaram. He's fully satisfied. What makes him happy is, oh, this person is trying to come back home. He wants to give up his futile attempts. He wants to give up his false identity and wants to understand what's the truth. He wants to be situated in his true position. So Krishna helps. Krishna helps. And when we are chanting, we are associating with Krishna. And because we are associating with Krishna, we can experience him. Krishna is full of knowledge, full of bliss, and he's eternal. So when we associate with him, we also feel the bliss because he's full of bliss. Anything we associate with, we take on that qualities. If we associate with people who are, gamblers, we will also become gambler one day by repeated association. So if we associate with Krishna by chanting his name, hearing about his pastimes, by worshipping the deity, then we get purified. We feel pleasure, we feel bliss because Krishna is full of bliss. Okay. Then Arjuna's deep affection for community and family members is exhibited here partly due to his natural compassion for them. He is therefore not prepared to fight. Everyone wants to show his opulence to friends and relatives, but Arjuna fears that all his relatives and friends will be killed on the battlefield, and he will be unable to share his opulence after victory. So after we get something good, a lot of money or a new house or, a new car or something, we like to show it to our friends and relatives. We like to share our happiness. Oh, see, I got this. So then now Arjuna is saying, I will get such a big kingdom, but who will I share it with? Who will I share my victory with? All my near and dear ones will be dead. Then what's the use of such a victory? So I will not be able to feel the pleasure because I can't share it with others. This is a typical calculation of material life. Transcendental life, however, is different. Since a devotee wants to satisfy the desires of the Lord, he can, Lord willing, accept all kinds of opulence for the service of the Lord. And if the Lord is not willing, he should not accept a farthing. So what is a pure devotee's mood? In pure devotee's mood is that whether the Lord wants to give him opulence or he does not want to give him opulence. He doesn't care about that. What he cares is, how can I serve the Lord? If he gives me the opulence, I will serve him with all what he has given me. And if he doesn't give me, I will still continue to serve the Lord. Arjuna did not want to kill his relatives. And if there were any need to kill them, he desired that Krishna kill them personally At this point, he did not know that Krishna had already killed them before their coming into the battlefield, and that he was only to become an instrument for Krishna. This fact is disclosed in the following chapters. So Krishna had already killed. When he says that after the universal form, he says, all these people are already dead. Do you want to take up your weapons and fight and take the glory or no? So we should also try to become instrument in hand of Krishna, a good instrument, do as Krishna desires. We are anyways instruments in his hand. Depends whether we want to be instrument in his hands indirectly, as under the material energy, or we want to become directly his instruments by engaging in devotional service. We are an instrument. It's only we do not realize it. We think we are the doers. We think I can do everything. The situation is under my control. But we are actually instruments. And that's what Arjuna has forgotten. And so he's telling Krishna, you go fight, you fight. I don't want to fight, you kill them. So how to make Arjuna realize this point? That's why Krishna speaks the Bhagavad Gita. As a natural devotee of the Lord, Arjuna did not like to retaliate against his miscreant cousins and brothers, but it was the Lord's plan that they should all be killed. The devotee of the Lord does not retaliate against the wrongdoer, but the Lord does not tolerate any mischief done to the devotee by the miscreants. The Lord can excuse a person on his own account, but he excuses no one who has done harm to his devotees. Therefore, the Lord was determined to kill the miscreants, although Arjuna wanted to excuse them. So a devotee of the Lord does not want to take personal revenge. Hey, you did this to me, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to, we don't kill people nowadays physically, but in our minds, or with our envy or with our anger or something. But pure devotees are not like that. They're like, oh, it doesn't matter at all. But when somebody tries to harm the pure devotee, what does Krishna do? He does not excuse. We saw in the case of Ambarish Maharaj and Durvasa Muni, when Durvasa Muni created a demon to kill Ambarish Maharaj for no fault of his. Durvasa Muni, although such a great yogi, could not check his anger. Ambarish Maharaj, although he's a king, he's a pure devotee of the Lord, he just waited with folded hands. Okay, you want to kill me? It's okay. But what did Krishna do? He sent his Sudarshan Chakra to kill Durvasa Muni. And Durvasa Muni went everywhere. He went even up to Lord Shiva. Please save me. The Sudarshan Chakra is killing me. The Lord Shiva said, I cannot stop it. You have to go to Vishnu. You have to go to Krishna. Then Durvasa Muni went to Vaikuntha. He's so powerful, he could go up to the spiritual world. And he said, my Lord, please take away this Sudarshan Chakra from, it's going to kill me. And what does Krishna say? I cannot stop this Sudarshan Chakra. You have offended my devotee. So Durvasa Muni says, don't you have a heart? I'm pleading you. I'm begging you. This gonna kill me. Don't you have a heart? Then Krishna says, no, I don't. I don't have my heart. My heart is with my devotees because they're always thinking of me. So I don't have my heart. My heart is with them. And they are in my heart. They're always thinking of me and I'm always thinking of them. So if you don't want to be killed, you want to be excused, you please go back to Ambarish Maharaj and take forgiveness from him. And Durvasa Muni went back to Ambarish Maharaj and said, my dear Ambarish Maharaj, please forgive me. And Ambarish Maharaj, being such a pure devotee, he said, I didn't even take any offense. I didn't take any offense at all. You didn't commit any offense to me. That's how a pure devotee is. And then the Sudarshan Chakra stopped. He went back. So that's how Krishna is. That Krishna is always protecting his devotees. Mare Krishna, Rakhe ke, Rakhe Krishna, Mare ke. Krishna is always pending to, he's always very alert to protect his devotees. And then instrument. We have to all become instruments in the hands of Krishna. We can pray, my dear Krishna, please let me be your good instrument. We always thinking, I'm the doer, I can do it, I'm doing it. That's all our Western education teaches us. You know, this is the goal, you get it, you do it. Not that we shouldn't have goals. Yeah, of course, we have a body, so we have to maintain it. We have goals, we do that. But we should become an instrument, a good instrument in the hands of Krishna. And that's our perfection, becoming a good instrument in the hand of Krishna. So we'll stop here for today for Bhagavad Gita. If there were any questions or comments or anything to share. If no, then we'll stop. Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.